Hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors oxygenaddict.com, triathlonbox.co.uk and precisionhydration.com. So I'm on my own this week. Helen is out in Rio, no co-host, and I'm actually pre-recording this one because I'm going to be away during the week this one goes out. So luckily for us, Helen has managed to pre-record a couple of great interviews. She's got an interview with Kat Morrison, who retired recently but is a legend of British multisport, multiple world champion over duathlon and winner of Ironman Lanzarote a few years ago, despite breaking a chain and waiting at the roadside for like 40 minutes or something like that, if I remember correctly. So great interview with her, and then also another sweet little interview with Kim Morrison, who recently stepped up from racing age group, winning medals at World Championship level as age grouper, and has been racing pro for the last year at 70.3. So two really good female interviews for this week. But listen, before we go on to do the interviews, just a little bit of business. I want to encourage you to take a little bit of time out and visit our sponsors. First up, Team Oxygen Addict are going to be open for a few more weeks, and then we're going to be closing our doors. So if you're thinking of getting some triathlon coaching, head over there to team.oxygenaddict.com and check out what we've got to offer. We've got training plans, supportive community, coaching advice from me, and you've also got access to loads of team podcasts, webinars and coaching videos. So we've really tried to take the one-to-one coaching program and make it virtual. So we'd love to have some more of you in there. Get over there and check it out before we close the doors at the end of August. Next up, a word for our sponsors, Triathlon Box. Much easier way to get your kit from the car all the way to transition. Cool little box that sits on the top tube of your bike and you can wheel it over and it locks so you can keep all your stuff safe while you're in transition. And finally, to our new sponsors, Precision Hydration. Those of you who listened to last week's episode will have heard me getting myself sweat tested. We had Andy Blow on from Precision Hydration a few weeks ago, and he did a great interview and really convinced me that the product they have is different, unique and better than I think anything else is on the market. It's an all-natural electrolyte drink and hydration solution, and I think it's a perfect thing for all triathletes. And the unique thing that they do is they give you an online sweat test to predict how much sodium and other electrolytes you're going to be losing as you exercise. And so especially for you guys racing 70.3 or Ironman and or racing in hot conditions, absolutely fantastic solution to your cramping and possibly feeling extremely unwell at the end of long races. It's been a revelation for me, this product, and so I'm wholeheartedly endorsing it because I've just been feeling so much better since I started taking it. So I encourage you to go on over there. If you go to precisionhydration.com, you can do the free online sweat test, and that'll give you a real good guide for how much sodium and electrolytes you're going to need to replace while you're exercising. So that's it for our sponsors. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope you guys tune in again next week. I'm going to hand you over now to Helen and the interview with Kat Morrison.
Kat Morrison, hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Finally on the Cup of Tri. Ha ha!
Was Kona your last race as a pro?
Yes, I think it would have been in that, what was that, 2014?
Yeah, so nearly a year and a half, just over a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Wow, and what's sort of life been like since finishing as a pro?
Busy, which is a good thing because what happened to me was that the year before I finished as a pro, I was introduced to a program called the Saltire Fellowship, who is an executive learning program where they take a group of Scots over to the States to do some entrepreneurial learning in the university over there. And I'd found out about the program, and they were looking for athletes because they thought that the mindset of athletes was also quite entrepreneurial and had the right characteristics, sort of raw material. And they were looking at Commonwealth Games athletes at the time, because obviously 2014. And I had been introduced to the program, but really had Kona, first and foremost as the one thing that I wanted to tick and do. And the program began a month before Kona, and it just wasn't applicable. And then the week that I just had decided to hang my boots up and retire, a letter arrived through the door saying, would you consider applying this year? And I thought, well, there you go. If it's not for you, it won't go by you. And I thought, yes, I would, because at that time athletes are all different, but a lot of people have, they phase their retirement. They know exactly when they're going to retire, and they have a plan. And then some people, don't get the choice to retire as, on their own terms. And then I was kind of somewhere in between. So I hadn't really worked out what I wanted to do, but I definitely made the choice myself, which was great because I wouldn't have liked to have finished under conditions that weren't in my control.
Like an injury or something like that.
Yeah, I think that must be very, very tough for a lot of athletes to sort of transition from. So when this letter arrived through the door a week after I had decided that I was going to stop, I thought, well, absolutely. If there's a chance to go and be exposed to a whole new environment and kick on the next part of whatever I want to do next.
Do you think that made it easier then?
Yeah. Because if you're always engaged and involved with something, because it's like any career, I guess, and if you go from all-consuming to nothing, then you just don't really know what to do with yourself. Most people face that when, in their 60s or they're 65 and they reach the end of the career. But for athletes and people making career choice transitions, then, it happens a lot earlier, and you're not necessarily equipped to cope with the change. And so something else that you can throw yourself into wholeheartedly, which takes up every waking minute and hour of your day, is actually quite a nice thing, because it stops you being able to, you're just doing, which is what you do as an athlete. You just do. And so for me, it was brilliant because it was just replicating that characteristic, that attitude in a new environment.
Were you working as well before you were sort of racing pro?
When I started to race pro, I'd come from university, and I'd actually just kind of, as I was reaching the tail end of what I was doing at university, I started being a pro athlete. So I didn't actually go into, so I thought I was going to go into environmental management and that area, and actually ended up diverging into this career in sport. And then went into work, I think, after the Commonwealth Games in 2006 because I was sick sick of what had happened at the Games. I was a bit dispirited with my performance and was questioning what I was doing with, when you invest so much time and effort in a performance and it doesn't happen, you begin to question why you do it in the first place, but you feel it's a reflection on, or it just reflects badly on all the people who have believed in you. And for me, I went through a little bit of, I'm not going to call it as much as bad as depression, but I did go through a really bad phase where I thought, I don't see the value in what I do. It wasn't fulfilling the aims I had as a person, and I felt like a bit of a fraud. So at that point, I thought, no, I'm going to go and I will have I'll have a proper 9-to-5 job and I'll live a normal life like everyone else. And I did that, and I loved it. I was doing sports development with the local council, so it kind of transferred from being a geologist into doing some sports development. And actually, it's not just the same, but then I had this itch that needed scratched because I wasn't done as an athlete, and then went back into doing full-time sport again. And then when I was injured in 2012, and sort of that period where I had the Achilles surgery, I volunteered for a charity that do life skill learning through sport, and they asked me if I actually wanted to go from the volunteering to having a full-time paid job, and at that point I did, because I wasn't able to train. And then when I was able to start training again to go to Kona in 2014, they allowed me to stay on just a day a week. But it was great for me because it gave me the sense of having something else to do, because some athletes can cope with being 110% in and around and always doing your sport. And I think, living in the UK and being essentially, where I live, the only triathlete in the village, it wasn't as if I was in this environment where everyone else was being a triathlete and I could be refreshed by that. It was actually, it's really nice to go to an office and have just a different perspective, and that's been really important for me, perspective massively, through because I think it's really easy as an athlete to get totally bogged down in yourself and your performance, and the end of the world is nigh when you get injured or you don't perform, and actually to be surrounded by people who are doing magnificent things in different disciplines was just really inspiring.
And a bit of an eye-opener as well, I guess.
Absolutely.
So take us back to 2006 after the Commonwealth Games, and you said you went through a not a great time. What was it that, I don't know, was there, you said that you didn't feel like you had kind of quite finished as an athlete. So what was it that got you back, on the start line again?
What it was so I'd had, I was so fit and so ready for the race and had such a desperately bad swim that was it from, as far as a standard distance triathlon is concerned. When you do that, then it's really hard to get back from. And but I knew that I was so fit and I had so much more to give that I actually went to, I thought a friend of mine had opened a company doing personal development for corporate world, and I went to a talk that he was giving, and he talked about those people who turn left and those people who turn right, and I can't remember which direction I was turning anymore. But the the thrust of this talk was about how people either maximize their strengths or try to minimize their weaknesses, and his argument was that you should always, first and foremost, work to maximize your strengths. And I thought, well, there is a lot in that. And actually, you know what? Right now, I am running like the wind and I am biking really, really well. And, why don't I just do some duathlon and really concentrate on the two things that I know I'm good at, that I get the positive self-fulfillment from, I get the confidence, and I know I can perform. And so after the Commonwealth Games in 2006, I went to the World Champs duathlon that same year. And that's the first year that I won the World Duathlon Championships. And it just gave me back a bit of my confidence and self-belief.
Yeah.
And then I started to think, okay, well, it's always hit or miss with your swim. So why don't you start doing a little bit more of the long distance stuff where, at least you do stand a chance of, catching back up and letting your your whole overall fitness as a package speak, rather than, if you're a weaker swimmer, you never really get that opportunity. So that's how the long distance stuff started.
So what was your first long distance race? Was it a half Ironman or an Ironman? Or
the first one I did was still doing some standard distance triathlon. It was the UK half, and it was when it was held before it moved over to Somerset. That was a miserable experience.
Why? Why was it so miserable?
Well, it wasn't miserable actually. It was eye-opening. It was enlightening. Yeah, nutrition. If anyone's listening and they're doing a half Ironman out there, get that nailed. Because I was brilliant until about a kilometre to the finish, and then I did the wiggle walk. Like, my legs appear to be detached from my body, and the paramedics are looking like they're ready for action. And that was just down to poor nutrition on the. Something happened on the bike. I can't remember what. I think I might have dropped a bottle. And then downhill from there.
But it got better, because that was your first experience of a longer distance race.
Mm-hmm.
And then clearly it got better because you won a few.
I won a few. I think in retrospect, actually, I think the nature of the kind of athlete I am is that my sweet spot is somewhere between the Olympic distance and the half, just in the way like my muscle types are. I never really, I did enjoy doing the Ironman, absolutely, but I never managed to nail that run and the combination of the run and the bike and the Ironman. And I think that's actually pretty much because I'm more suited to that kind of half Ironman effort. Yeah, that's fine, because it's horses for courses, and I have no regrets.
Tell us about wasn't there a race was it Lanzarote where you had like a puncture or maybe even a worse mechanical than that, and it just took ages for someone to get to you, but then didn't you still go on and win it?
That was 2010 Ironman Lanzarote, so exactly halfway around the bike course my chain snapped and I was kind of stuck at the side of the road. And I didn't realise how long for, because I didn't have a watch on, so I was just kind of chewing the fat with the locals. Waving people on, saying, well done. And then eventually they came and they fixed my chain. Note to self, always to carry, well, I don't know, do you carry a chain breaker in a race? Actually, if I carried a chain breaker at that point, I wouldn't have bloody well known how to use it. So
that's the thing, it would have weighed you down by
So eventually they came along, fixed the chain, and I went through this little talk in my head, and I kind of went from, well, when it first happened, it's the same way as that. I don't know if you've ever punctured in a race. My first reactions, I was like, oh, that's a bona fide excuse to stop. Because you're in so much pain when you're racing. You know, it's a good pain, but, oh, excellent. And then my second reaction was, well, that's a bit of a bugger, because I really was hoping to qualify for Kona. And then when I finally got the chain fixed, I was left with two decisions. One was to try and find my way home, back to transition. And I thought, I actually don't really know where I am, and I'll just get lost. So I thought, at least if I go in the direction of travel, that'll be pretty obvious where the transition is. And so that's what I did. But it was actually a lot of fun when I got back on the bike, because there were so many, at that point, you know, you're in the middle of the race, and there were so many people, and it was almost like I always had someone or something to chase. And when I got back, so then I had a dialogue with myself the whole way back to T2, thinking, well, do I actually run? I don't really know.
Because you would have had no idea about where you were in comparison with the other women.
I had no idea. I didn't get any information given to me really when I was in transition, and then just thought, well, you know, I paid a lot of money to come here, and you know, I put in a lot of training, then I might as well get a really good brick section out of this whole situation. Let's try and salvage something. And I thought, well, I'll just run the first lap, because that's exactly a half marathon. And then I'll know that, you know, if I need to race an Ironman next weekend or the weekend after, that I'll be able to. And so I ran the half marathon, and by that time, I think I caught at least half of the time. So it had been 45 minutes, and I went into the lead with 5 kilometres to go. And the thing was, I overtook, and I think her name was Louise, and at that point, Louise was winning the race as an age group athlete.
Okay.
So that in itself was a really big story, and I felt really guilty. You know, I'm kind of overtaking her, thinking, oh, I'm really sorry. Well, half of me is like, I'm really sorry. The other half's like, woo! It's just one of these things that, you know, when you look back on your racing career and people talk about it, and you realise that, you know, you can always make a good thing out of a pretty suboptimal situation, if that's the way you choose to have your mindset go. And it's, you know, people talk to me now about what I've learned from sport, and, you know, little things like that, little gems and nuggets, kind of have to remind myself of.
And that is a good example, isn't it, of actually keeping your head?
Yes. And it's something I coach maybe 4 athletes now, just a small little bunch, and it's the one thing that I say always before every race. And I don't say keep the head, because that's far too polite. We say keep the head.
Kat, what about when you were injured? So 2012, had it been like a niggle for quite some time, or did it happen, you know, over the space of a very short space of time?
No, this like when I finally decided to go for surgery, it was, you know, it had been a roller coaster for probably 2 or 3 years of Achilles problems that were, when they first started happening, the sort of frequency of them happening was quite, you know, it was quite wide. It wasn't happening all that often. I'd be able to recover, train, cross train, keep my fitness, and then, you know, if I could do that, I could bring my running back up very, very quickly. And then as the discomfort kind of grew and the injury became more chronic, the time between outbreaks or incidences decreased, and just the training just became so stochastic. It was almost like I was just training between bouts of being injured, to the point where I just thought, you know, it began to affect, it sounds drastic, but it began to affect my quality of life. I couldn't get up in the middle of the night or the morning and walk to the bathroom without hobbling. And when it got like that, I just thought, you know, I now need to really try to do something about it. But it took almost a year. So I made the decision in 2011 that I needed to do something about it, and then almost taken a whole year off of triathlon, or by 2012, by the point where I had done the research and found what I hoped was going to be the answer, and that really was surgery. But I'd given a long time to trying everything, through the kitchen sink at it.
When you made the decision to have surgery, did you really think you'd make a return?
Yes, because it was the one thing that kept me going, that I would make a return. And yeah, because you always have to have, no matter what you're doing, you know, whether you're doing athletics or triathlon or something at work or with your family, everyone's the same. Most people, like it or not, are goal oriented. You've got to have something that you believe that you can achieve, or at least be heading towards that, even if, even if it's not going to be come to fruition. So, and it always was my goal. And I think partially when Kona didn't go to plan in 2014, it was almost as if I kind of wonder if I'd given all the mental and physical energy that I had to give in the process of even just getting there. So by the time I got there, I wonder if I was just toasted. But I'll never know. But yeah, that became my focus, and it was good because when just to get back to that level of racing and to prove that you're not a fluke and you're not that you are capable of it. That was brilliant.
I've heard a couple of people mention this thing about being a fluke and questioning, all the time. Yeah, like, am I just a fluke? Do I really deserve to be here? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that question. And I wish I did, because it's the one thing probably, and it still does, and it really frustrates Richard, my husband, because he has to live with the consequences of or the doubt and the self-doubt and all the negative connotations of what you go through as a person and athlete, where all he could see was what a brilliant athlete I was, and all I could see was like, I don't deserve to be at the start line, and well, actually I won that race, and I didn't win the race because I was the fittest and the best and the strongest on the day. I won it because, well, that person must have been sick and this person had a puncture, and they just had an off day, and I think a lot of athletes will have that same process that they go through, and one of the things that's difficult when you look at your wins in that way, when you look at your successes in that way, is that I don't think you ever truly celebrate your successes in the way that you should, because then you're thinking, okay, well, now I need to get training for the next one because I could have done that better or this better, and you don't take the time in the moment and to be in the moment to celebrate the success, and then you walk away from your career and people say, oh, didn't you celebrate that? And actually, I probably didn't celebrate the successes in the way that I should have, but that's something I can look back and reflect on now and make sure that I don't, make sure that at least I'm aware of it, because that's the first step to acceptance that something needs to be done.
So would you encourage, age groupers who are listening to this, or some of you mentioned that you coach now 4 or 5 athletes, do you encourage them to actually celebrate? Not everyone can win, clearly, but actually, if you get to that finish line, you've achieved something. Mixing, especially for age groupers, with work and family and everything like that.
Yeah, I think the key into and with the young people that I talk to and the way that I try and operate is that you have to, if you're going through the processes and you're doing everything you can within the moment and in your training and everything else, then the map is sort of set, and then come race day, you perform and you concentrate on yourself and not what anyone else is doing. And if you can walk away with your head held high, thinking, I did everything that I could on race day, then you can be as excited and as ecstatic with crossing the line in first place as you can with crossing the line in 51st place, because the objective is to meet and surpass your own goals. And if you get, I think, and it's in every sport, if you tip the balance and become too concerned about what other people think or what other people are doing or the act of winning, then that's where it can kind of crumble underneath, and you need the base of the iceberg and the base of the pyramid to be strong, because that's the way that, and that also helps a lot of elite athletes to deal with loss in the same way as they deal with success. And that's where I think good sportsmanship comes from as well, because at the end of the day, you can only do what you do in a race, and if someone else is better than you on the day, then you have to accept that fact. Doesn't mean that you don't go away and go, right, okay, next time I'm going to get you.
Fuel for the fire. And Kat, I remember hearing once about one of your mental tactics about during a race, because clearly if you are doing an Ironman or something, it's a long time to be out there biking and running. So what little mental games would you play with yourself to pass that time, basically?
Well, I mean, and I know, Helen, that this is top secret and highly scientific proven method that really, I'm patenting, and there's a lot of IP on this one that I don't really want people to know about because it's the next best business plan. I still do it. Like, I do it on the canal.
So go on, tell us, what is it?
Well, Helen, if you're in front of me and you're wearing a red jersey, then I will recite red, 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 red until I get to you. I was doing it with cars the other week because I've just started running after not being able to run for about a month and a half. And I'd only been for about a half-hour run. It was getting really, really hard. So every car that came past, I was like, okay, white, 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 white. Oh, blue, blue, blue. It's called disassociation. It's a well-known technique, so I can't patent it or IP it. And my disassociation method is to just recite colours of whatever's ahead of me.
Wow. So you would spend, what, 30k running, staring at jerseys in front of you, reciting the colour of the jersey?
What do you do?
Well, since I heard that technique, I'd like to say that I have tried to implement it slightly. Or you sort of look at the next person, don't you? Like, right, I'm going to have them, I'm going to get them, I'm going to get them. Maybe
it's because I'm more internally competitive. So my way of getting you is to recite the colour of your jersey. Is not to go, I'm going to get that person. It's the process.
Tell me a little bit about Everactive, because that's what you're putting your energy into at the moment, isn't it?
Yes. So I've started with a business partner. Her name is Linda. And Linda actually was born in Canada but lives here in Scotland. And she has a sort of business background in franchising. But Linda has a daughter who's a triathlete, and she'd been bemoaning the fact for a while that every summer she'd go to Canada and she'd see all the kids dressed up in really, how swimming costumes went through that real, like, all of a sudden we went from black to like, woohoo, this is brilliant.
Like that trainers went from white to colourful.
Yeah, but and sports kit and activewear has done that, but there's still not a lot out there for kids. And Linda and I both coach young kids. She coaches running and I coach triathlon. And it's true, there's not as much available for kids, and the stuff that is available is quite often quite expensive, and that's a barrier to parents. And a barrier for kids who want to be physically active. So Linda and I said, we must be able to try and do something where we create a really great looking product that's, it's bright and it's vibrant and the kids want to wear it, and actually it's not going to bankrupt the parents. But on top of this, we wanted to have a brand where we're dedicated to enabling and supporting young people to be physically active. So we want to create a website where people can come and learn and interact with other athletes and find out, if you don't know a lot about nutrition as a parent, because maybe you haven't been an active parent yourself, but your kids are sporty, come along to the website, find out, or actually, you don't know where to find a physiotherapist for your child, or does your child need physiotherapy, all these little things. Creating a little spot on the website for, learning and interacting with people, and through the social media to create that kind of community. And at the same time, having a couple of things that we do with the brand to support the clubs who are supporting our kids to be physically active, which is really important because, quite often, you send your kid off to a club, and, some clubs essentially become babysitting services, which is, that might sound a little bit harsh, but in some environments that's what happens. But we want these clubs to exist for the kids. So part of what we want to do is have a system where if I'm registered with Helen's Triathlon Club and Helen's Triathlon Club is registered with Everactive, then anytime a customer makes a purchase, and if you're affiliated to Helen's Club, then we'll donate a part of our profits to Helen's Club. So as a customer, you don't get a kickback, but your club that your kid is going and experiencing and having a wonderful time at, it gets supported. So that's one of the kind of things that we're working on in the business plan. And the other thing is we recognise that one of the things that happens with kids is they grow really fast, and that's I'm not going to change that. We're not talking about any
genetic
interference or anything. Be rest assured. But what we'll do is we'll take those items that your kids might have grown out of, and you return them to us, and then we'll give you a discount for your next product. But those things that come back to us will be redistributed partner charities to go to kids who might not necessarily have access to sports clothing. So again, to reduce those barriers to access. So, primarily I need to run a business. It needs to wash its face. It needs to make money. But I also wanted to support young people being physically active. And, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and try and do it. And if it falls flat in its face, then so be it. I will have learned so much more in the process than I would have if I didn't start. So, I've only got a little bit of pride to lose, and
It's great, because I think there'll be a lot of parents listening whose kids are involved in triathlon, and so I genuinely think there will be a lot of interest.
I hope so. It is definitely a niche of a niche.
If people want to find out a little bit more, where can they get more information?
www.everactive.com, and it's EVERACTIV without an E on the end.
So ever, as in the normal word, active but no e.com.
Yes. We hope to have the inventory in at the end of August, beginning of September, and really to start selling them. But right now you can still come along to the website, and there'll be blogs and updates, and got competitions on right now for anyone who wants to win some of our sample range. You can join our competitions on Instagram.
One last thing. We often ask our interviewees if you could give one tip to age group athletes, what would your one tip be?
Never try anything in racing that you haven't tried in training.
Did you do that once?
Numerous occasions. From the small and pathetic to the more, so I can give you two really good examples. Very, very, very early on in my triathlon career, Darren Smith was the national coach in Scotland, and we'd been training in Spain, and I can't remember if it was a triathlon or a duathlon. I think it was a little triathlon, but I had decided that for the first time ever I was going to do my hair in a new way. Because I'm so about how it looks, that. And so I put a French pleat in my hair, thinking, this is brilliant, and this is a new hairstyle, I'll keep my hair out of the way. And I went to put my helmet on, and I was like, oh, the helmet is now not fitting on my head. So there I was, kind of faffing around in transition with Darren just standing there with this look of absolute disgust on his face, like, you are no athlete of mine. What is going on in there? So that's a small example of, the smallest thing that could trip you up, a hairstyle. And then a larger example of what not to do. I can't remember what Kona it was, but I had been doing the beetroot juice thing for a while before races, because the evidence would seem to suggest that it did help your athletic performance, even though beetroot juice is like drinking dirt. Anyway, so instead of having fresh beetroot juice, I had these little beetroot shots, and I thought, well, that'll be absolutely fine. But I'd never tried it before the race, and it was just so much more concentrated than anything that I had used during training or previous racing, that it quite literally, it just went straight through me, and it just made the bike ride and the run total hell with my stomach. But that's an example of how, I should have, that was just ridiculous as a professional athlete. That was just a stupid mistake to make. And that was at the Kona end of the spectrum, where this is the one race of the year where you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. So yes, that would be my top tip. Never to do anything in a race that you haven't already tried and tested in training. And that goes from, little things like hairstyles or wearing a new pair of shoes to, things that trip you up in a big race.
Fantastic. Kat Morrison, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Right, great interview there with Kat, and now it's time to hand you over to the next interview that Helen managed to record with Kimberly Morrison. Stay tuned for more news about how to step up from age grouper to pro.
Kim Morrison, welcome to the Cover Triathlon podcast.
Hi Helen, thank you so much for having me.
Take us back, Kim. How did you first get into triathlon?
I first got into triathlon at school, actually. They put triathlons on and no one really liked the sound of it, but I loved the sound of the challenge. That was my first taste of triathlon. And then after graduating from Loughborough University, moving to London, playing field hockey, a friend of mine, Justine, she was giving triathlon a go. So I thought, I'm going to join you. I'm going to come to, I believe we did a triathlon in Henley, and absolutely loved it. And then went to the London Triathlon in 2012. Again, absolutely loved it. I wasn't anything inspiring. I was running a 50-minute 10K, fairly modest, and just ambitions grew and grew. And then 2013, it was World Age Group at London and the duathlon in Canada. And then before I knew it, I was making the decision to race pro at Ironman 70.3. It feels quick. I guess it's been 4 years of development.
Go back to when you were growing up. Did you do much swimming, running, biking?
Well, at the age of just 3, actually, I had open heart surgery. The doctors were working very closely with my family to get me strong enough to undergo the complex surgery, and fortunately it was a great success. And since then, I've always absolutely loved sport, and I've absolutely loved being ambitious. So I was always in and amongst all the different sports, to be honest.
Were you part of a swimming club and stuff in growing up in Norfolk, or a running club or anything like that?
No, just what school had to offer. So I did a little bit of swimming, a little bit of running, but I was never anything inspiring. I just loved them all. My dad and I used to go on Sunday bike rides. We used to have our mountain bikes, and we used to try and clock up 20 miles every Sunday. So that was the experience I'd had on a bicycle.
Wow, so you've come quite a long way then in that couple of years. What, 4 years to now being right up there with the top bike splits in 70.3s?
Yeah, lots of hard work has gone in on the bike over the past 3-4 years, but I would never expect to be cycling some of the splits I've seen myself cycle, especially back in Sweden, coming up alongside Jodie Swallow. I was totally blown away by that. That was, I was chuffed. Chuffed that my bike legs seem to be taking me to the front of races.
So go on then, what is the secret? We all want to know. How do you go from being just a normal Sunday cyclist racking up 20 miles on the mountain bike to absolutely smashing it on the bike?
No secrets. I'm just so determined, and I have a great coach. He knows cycling so well. Mark Pearce from IntelliTri. I mean, my sessions are so very specific to me. He knows what works for me. I do a variety of things. I have a watt bike sat here in the garage at home. I spend hours on it, and I spend hours out on the country roads as well on both my road bike and time trial bike. Put in the time and the effort, and I'm so very determined to hit those numbers each and every session.
At the moment then, would a typical week look like a couple of interval sessions on the bike and then a longer ride, or what sort of training are you doing week in, week out?
That gives an outline. Yeah, it does depend on what races I've got coming up and what the nature of the bike course is like. My coach and I, Mark, always have a look at what the profile of the course will look like, and we try and replicate some training sessions. So I've got my biggest race of the year coming up, Wiesbaden, the European Championships. We've had a look at that course, and we're doing some bike specific sessions to suit that. So it varies, but yeah, I'll get a long ride in, a couple of interval sessions, and then an easy spin. And my easy spin is an easy spin. My heart rate barely touches 100. So I guess another thing I believe I do well is I do easy, very easy.
How much training would you do, Kim, every week?
I don't tend to touch over 20 hours. 20 hours is a good week for me.
Yeah.
It's 20 good hours, but yeah, that's about my marker.
And what about your run? You said that you were doing a 50-minute 10K. How have you got that time down?
Yeah, my running is not competitive enough at the moment to hold the position I seem to be finding myself up at the front in races. But we can't have everything at once, so it's a focus, but it's certainly an obvious weakness of mine at the moment. But it will come. I'm patient and I'm happy with where my swim bike combination is at the moment. But I do appreciate triathlon is the full 3, so the work will be there and the work is coming.
Brilliant. So go back to 2013. What was the key race there, 2013 then?
2013 was the age group World Championships. It was, I believe, hosted in London in 2013. Or was that 2014? 2013 it was. And that was my real focus there.
Okay, so that would have been Olympic distance.
That was Olympic distance, yeah. And it was great because we got to watch the elites race, and then we had a slightly different bike course, but we basically got to race in the same race in Hyde Park and have the great atmosphere that they all enjoyed as well. I finished top 25 in the world in my age group. It was a great day. The experience was absolutely magical. I loved it.
And then 2014 then, were you still doing Olympic then, or did you take the step up to middle distance at that point?
Yeah, no, 2014 I stuck to Olympic distance. I was working with my coach at the time, Perry Agas, and we went out to Kitzbühel, the European Championships, and I won the gold medal in my age group, and that was our focus for that year, and we went and did it. So it was a really, really inspiring year, 2014. I think that's what really gave me the confidence to keep going at triathlon and keep seeing where I could go, because I was watching the elites and not dreaming. I'm not a dreamer. I was admiring and certainly thinking one day that's where I want to be.
So what point was it then that you actually thought, rather than dreaming, yep, I can do that?
The end of 2014, I did a middle distance race. It was the Cotswolds Classic. Absolutely loved the distance. Felt competitive at it. So over the winter of 2014 going into 2015, the focus was very much on the middle distance, the 70.3 distance. And we came out in 2015 racing age group and having the goal of qualifying for the Ironman 70.3 age group World Championships, which we did, and we were off to Zell am See, Austria. That race was absolutely spectacular. The atmosphere was just wonderful, and just being there was absolutely awesome. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't what I wanted. I came 6th, but the atmosphere was exactly what I wanted, and I had family and friends there to enjoy it with too.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
It really was, yeah.
The
only thing that wasn't quite so amazing was that hill on the bike. I think it went on for about 18k, and seeing all my competitors go past and my training partners giving me a go, Kim, and keep going. Oh, that hill. It was horrible.
See, I loved that hill, but I had a back break on the whole of the bike leg, so it turns out I did not love the bike out in Zell am See, but there's a rookie error for you. Never, always check your back brakes. Anyway, so you went from that was age group 6, and then what, soon after that you thought, you know what, I'm going to go pro?
Yeah, my husband Ben had a look at the criteria on the British Triathlon website, and you have to be within a certain percentage of the winner in your respective races, and I was within that in a couple of races actually. It was Norway and I believe it was France. So I submitted my application to race professionally, which got agreed, and then from September onwards I picked Hever Castle, the gauntlet. I went there and raced and won, which was fantastic, real confidence booster. And then I went on to race Challenge Sardinia and Challenge Phuket, where I finished within the top 10. So it was 2015 gave me a little taste for what it would be like to race professionally, and then leading into 2016 I had the confidence to know that I deserved to be on the start line.
What have you found are the main differences between racing as an age grouper and racing amongst the pros?
The main difference and the most honest difference is the swim start. There's not as many people in the water, which suits me perfectly because I'm not a big fan of the big washing machine effect. But I do appreciate now they are doing the rolling starts. So more often than not, people don't have to experience that anymore.
And then what about actually race tactics? Because does that come into it a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. At age group racing, you're never quite sure whereabouts in the race you are, but it's really cool in professional racing because you know exactly who's in front of you, you know exactly who's behind you. You know, there's people yelling out splits all the time, and it really is a race to the finish line. So for me, it's a great style of racing, and a style of racing I think I thrive off because it gives, on the bike especially, it gives me that extra oomph to go and chase and get to the front of the field and really show my bike legs at the front, and then see where we go with my run, which is still very much work in progress. So the style of racing is much different in that respect.
We hear from quite a lot of pros on the Cup of Tri, and you know, a number of them have spoken about the difficulties of being a professional triathlete, in that, you know, it's quite tough sometimes to make a living and things. How have you found that side of it?
Yeah, it's certainly a struggle, and it is expensive to go abroad racing numerous times in the season. It's great that I have the support from our family-run business, and I work part-time when I can for them, and other sponsors too, which really allow me to do what I'm doing this year, because the prize money I've accumulated this year would only make me break even, so I couldn't afford to eat or anything. So certainly a struggle, and I think as a newcomer into the sport, it's especially difficult.
Yeah, I mean, talk us through some of those difficulties as a newcomer, because you always have to establish yourself first, don't you, before you can actually, you know, be right up there sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the struggles I'm having, to be honest, at the moment is my bike. It's a great strength of mine. However, we've paid out of our own pockets for the bike I'm now riding, and it's really tricky because anything goes wrong, that is my bike. It's my race bike, it's my training bike, it's my everything bike. So we've had a few headaches along the way, but for me, next year finding a bike sponsor would really take the pressure off and would really make my season a lot less stressful.
Looking at some of your races this year, you've had some fantastic results then. So Buenos Aires kicked it off. What was going through your mind when you were crossing that finish line in Argentina?
So much emotion. It was absolutely amazing. I picked up the tape and held it proudly in the air, and I just ran it over to my husband. They were trying to take it off me, but I had to go and show him that here's the tape, I've got the tape. It was it was magical. I cannot wait to do it again.
And then you were out in Sweden recently and had another really good race there. What was the 70.3 in, did you say, Jönköping like?
Yes, fantastic. It was their inaugural event. So first time, the race prep and organisation was fantastic. Never been to a race like it. And all the accommodation and the town is right by the triathlon. It's right by transition, right by the swim start. So if anybody is looking for a logistically very easy triathlon abroad, Sweden is great for that. The journey from the airport to the town is a couple of hours, so that's a long way. But once you're there, everything is so easy and so beautiful. Lovely atmosphere. Loved that race. The scenery was beautiful because the bike route took you on a really nice 90k loop. You climbed a little bit at the beginning, but the rest of the course was super fast, and you went round lakes and loads of green vegetation. It was stunning, and the road surface was really smooth too, so it was a really enjoyable scenic ride. Not too hot either, so if you're used to training in the UK, going out to Sweden to race is a good thing. It's not too hot.
Fantastic. And how does the tail end of this season look for you?
Got my biggest race of the year coming up, Ironman 70.3 European Championships, We're off to the London Triathlon a week before to introduce a little bit of speed and get in amongst the drafting. And then I finish off my season representing Great Britain at the Middle Distance European Championships in Walshy, and that's on the 4th of September.
That'll be a good one. I think that one's meant to be sort of fairly chocolate box-like.
Yes, the pictures look absolutely beautiful. I have not been myself.
Brilliant. And then, Kim, do you see yourself stepping up to Ironman at some point down the line?
Yeah, some point down the line, when I feel and my coach feels I'm strong enough, we will certainly start introducing some more mileage, and yeah, we'll see how we go. We haven't put a time frame on that yet, but it's definitely something we're thinking about.
Now, you've mentioned Ben, your husband. What kind of role does he have in the team?
He does everything. He's even out racing with me. He is just as exhausted as I am after a race. He's the bike mechanic. He's gets all the nutrition ready. He's done all the course recce's with me. I wouldn't be where I am now without him. He is just brilliant.
And you mentioned Mark Pearce as well, who's your coach. When did you start working with Mark?
I started working with Mark approximately 2 years ago now, actually. Yeah, he's been absolutely excellent, and we've been on many camps together, so we've had a lot of face-to-face time as well. So yeah, the relationship is getting stronger, and together we're getting stronger.
And what are the camps like? Talk us through a typical Intelligent Tri camp.
If you get a well done, you know you've done really well, because they don't come out very often. They're great. Mark doesn't take a lot of whinging and whining. If you're there to get the job done, then get the job done. You know, he's very much the sessions are there to be done. Let's crack on and do them. He suits me perfectly. He really does.
Like a no nonsense kind of approach.
No nonsense. Yep, absolutely.
Now, you're obviously based down in Norfolk. Do you ever do much training with other people down there, or is a lot of it on your own?
Yeah, I'm part of our local club Triangular, and more I start seeing guys join some of my sessions. Over the winter, I go and join other people's sessions, but right now it's all very specific for me, so I just enjoy the company when a few guys want to join me. But it's very much a lonely thing during the race season, but in the winter, yeah, we've got a really good group. Triangular's got over 450 members, so we've got a nice atmosphere here.
Kim, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that the tail end of the season goes well, and then that you continue to make all these amazing improvements next season as well.
Yeah, thanks, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
And that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for tuning in and listening. We really appreciate it. And I just wanted to take a second to thank all the people who are patrons of the show. Patrons of the show pay each month to support the show. You can pay £2 a month, £5 a month and £10 a month. And we really appreciate it if you've got that spare change you can chuck over to us to help support the continual running of the show. Just so you know what's going on behind the scenes, I'm working with several different sponsors of the show and potential sponsors of the show to come up with some really cool bonuses, freebies and discounts for people who are going to be patrons. So all that's going to be revealed over the coming month, hopefully. We're just finalising those deals. So yeah, really appreciate the guys who take the time to become patrons of the show and support us putting it out every month. So listen, until next week, hope you have a great training and racing week. I hope you're safe. I hope the weather's good. I hope the sun shines on your bike rides this week. And more importantly, I hope you get out there and do something awesome with your body. Get out there and train, get out there and race, and just enjoy the great British summertime. All right, everyone, thanks very much, and we'll speak to you again next week.